I've been using a to-do list app all wrong, according to our next guest, Nir Eyal. Nir is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Hooked and Indistractable, two incredibly popular books, and he's one of their leading experts in procrastination and habit design. He's a behavioral engineer that helps look at how we form habits and get distracted in everyday life. And today we're looking at his own daily routine, the apps that he uses, and most importantly, exploring how I use a to-do list and how he thinks I should be using something else called time boxing. So let's get our attention mastery locked in for today's stack. So my first question for you, Nir, is around your daily routine. Obviously, as somebody who studies this, do you embody it, and what does your daily routine look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of time boxing. Time boxing uses this technique, which is very well studied in psychological science, called setting an implementation intention, which is just a fancy way of saying what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. There are thousands of peer-reviewed studies now that have shown how effective this is. So I converted from a to-do list methodology, which I now am a huge opponent of. I think to-do lists are one of the worst things you can do for your personal productivity, unless they are used in conjunction with a calendar, a time box calendar. So I'm a big fan of time box calendars. If you just use a to-do list without a time box calendar, you are shooting yourself in the foot. It's really, I would say it's actively harmful. We can talk about why in a minute. So what does my typical day look like? So I wake up by 7 a.m. I have, and I wake up naturally. I don't wake up with an alarm. I'll tell you what the secret to that is in a minute. I have breakfast with my family. I make sure that my family's fed, and then I'll jump straight into work. So that's the time. Actually, no, let me correct that a little bit. That was what I used to do in Singapore. Now I'm in Paris for the next 2 months. And so now our daily ritual has been at 8 o'clock, my wife and I go on an hour walk and get a cup of coffee and a croissant, because the croissants here are chef kiss. Amazing. I love croissants. It's my favorite food. So every day I get a croissant in Paris. And then when I get back, then I do what I normally do, which is jump right back into work. So from 9 to noon, I'll be on my laptop, typically writing. That's usually my highest priority of the day. I always time box in advance what I will do for the next day. So now I'm finishing up my third book. And so if I can get in a good 3 hours of writing, that's a very productive writing session. Sometimes I do go off track, but I have tools and techniques in place to make sure that I can get right back on my time boxed activity. Then at noon, I'll have lunch with my family. And then at 1 o'clock, I'll typically hit the gym. And then after that, I'll do meeting with a friend. I'll do a business meeting. I'll do maybe a walk if I have not that much on my agenda for the day. Until around, I like to eat 6:30, and that takes about an hour. And then after that, I do this. I do interviews, typically in the evening. That's what the time of day it is now. And because I'm in Paris, most of the interviews I'm doing are in with the United States. So typically I do them in the evening, and then I'm in bed by 10:30. And that's the secret to waking up at 7 is getting to bed at 10:30.
So let's take a look at the technology and tech stack that you use every single day. Obviously, I think it's important to understand that technology and foundations aren't everything. But what tools do you use every single day?
Sure. So before I tell you that, all the apps, all the hacks, all the tips and tricks, the grayscaling bullshit, all that stuff to be more productive is nice. It's nice. It works. But they're tactics. Tactics are what you do. Strategy is why you do it. So if you're using these apps that preach productivity, but you don't understand the underlying psychology of what it's doing for you, eventually it's not going to work. So before you dive into the apps, the tips, the tricks, which I'll get to, I'll tell you what I like to use. The most important thing is to, number one, understand the internal triggers. I'm walking you through the outline of my book, Indistractable, which I highly recommend. It changed my life writing the book. It's a life-changing process to do what you say you're going to do. And the technology won't help you. It actually will hurt you unless you understand the deeper psychology, because you'll always be looking for the next tool. You'll always be looking for the next trick. And really, the cold, hard reality is that most of our distractions are not out here. They're in here. They're in our heads. It's our feelings. It's boredom. It's loneliness. It's fatigue. It's uncertainty. It's anxiety. That's why we get distracted. Distraction is not a moral failing. It's not a broken brain. There's nothing wrong with you. It's simply that you haven't learned to deal with distraction in a healthy way. So step number one is mastering internal triggers, knowing what to do with that discomfort. That's the most important thing. Step number two is making time for traction. That's what we talked about with time boxing. There's a lot more to that, but you get the idea. Now, number three is hacking back the external triggers. This is when we start to work on all the pings, the dings, the rings, the meetings, the interruptions, all the external trigger stuff. And then step number four is preventing distraction with pacts, which is where we have this firewall against distraction, that we put something in between us and the distraction through what's called a pre-commitment device. When you do all steps in concert, I promise you, if you do these four steps, anyone can become indistractable. Okay, so that's the strategy. Now we can get into the tactics of what tools do I use, what kind of technologies are out there. I will tell you the best tool is the one you use. Okay, I know people who are indistractable who use nothing but pen and paper. I know people who are indistractable who have, their Slack connected to their email, connected to Superhuman, connected to Motion, connected to like 16 different tools. So it's not really about the tool per se. It's about how the tool is used. Personally, the best tool I use is Google Calendar. Just having, my reoccurring appointments. I know when breakfast, lunch, dinner is every day. I know when I want to go to the gym every day. I know when I'm going to spend time with my wife. I know when I'm going to spend time with my daughter. I know when I'm going to call my friends. I know when I have time for writing. I know when I have time for meetings. Using Google Calendar with reoccurring meetings is incredibly effective. Now, I think that there is a coming wave of new technology. One of them I've invested in, I liked so much, called Motion. You're familiar with Motion, I assume, right? Yeah, so Motion, I think, does something really special that I haven't seen other tools do, in that it will automatically schedule tasks in your calendar. And then if you complete them or not complete them, it will automatically find that time. It'll reschedule for that task. So if I have a bunch of things that I want to spend my time doing, I used to put each and every one into a time box and say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this. Now I say, okay, I'm going to do one of these three tasks, but you know what? Maybe I feel like doing this task before that task. That's fine. That's okay. Because now I have a little choice. And as long as I can go down and say, I've allocated this much time, only 30 minutes to task A, task B, task C, it doesn't really matter if I do C, B, A, or A, B, C, as long as I'm not doing anything else but those three tasks. And whether I need more time for it or less time for it, it will automatically allocate that in the future. And what's also powerful about this is that if I'm working on a team, for example, our head of content, if she says, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z, and I approve that, it will automatically find the time, as opposed to for me having to say, okay, where do I want that time to go? It'll look at my calendar and find that automatically. So I kind of like that. I will give you the pros and cons. The con is I think it's overbuilt. I think for people who are solo entrepreneurs, it's a lot. There's a very steep learning curve, and I wish they would kind of dumb it down. But for teams, I think it's very, very effective. There's other companies out there who are trying to do something similar, and I'm sure there'll be more tools available. But that's one I'm particularly excited about. So I used to have this really bad habit of reading content online. I love to read. That's like my primary information medium. I try and stay away from like YouTube videos and TikToks and Instagram because it's just this, never ending pit. I schedule that stuff in my day because I need to be active on social media, but I really like to read. The problem was that when I would read a really good article, I'd want to keep reading, and there'd be another article by that author or on that topic, and I'd keep clicking down this vortex of more and more and more content online, and then it would be very distracting. So now I have a rule that every single article that I read online, I never read on my laptop. I always send it to Instapaper. And through Instapaper, which is just an app on the Chrome of your browser, and then you click it, and then all the text gets scraped out without the ads, without all the hyperlinks and junk. It's put on my phone. And then there's another app called VoiceStream, which will read those articles to you. So my workflow is that I only get to listen to those articles when I'm doing something healthy for my body. So I'm taking a walk, I'm in the gym. Sometimes if I'm driving or on the train, that's when I get to listen to these articles. So it's kind of an incentive to as a reward for exercise, I get to listen to these articles as opposed to what used to be a distraction of reading it on my desktop. So I am a huge fan of Fitbod. I'm not an investor, and I'm not an investor because I wrote about them as a case study and I didn't want a conflict of interest. So Fitbod, F-I-T-B-O-D, was built with my Hook model. The first book I wrote was about how to build habit-forming products, and they actually built the app based on my book. And I love it. I've used it consistently for years now. And at 47 years old, I'm in the best shape of my life.
Okay, I think I've been doing time boxing all wrong. So I right now just use a regular to-do list. And essentially what I do is just add the tasks on there. I'll occasionally block that time, but I think I've been getting the concept of it wrong. So could you maybe explain where I'm going wrong?
A to-do list is a register of outputs. It's the things you want to have done. And so it's ridiculous to run your schedule, to run your life based on a to-do list, because in reality, what people do is they do the easy stuff. They do the urgent stuff. They don't do the hard and important work they have to do to move their lives and careers forward. And this is because all we have is output. We have the things we want to have done, but you can't have output without input. So it's like going to a baker. Let's say you were going to go to a baker and say, hey, I need 12 cupcakes for my daughter's birthday party, right? Well, the first thing that the baker's going to say to themselves is, well, okay, if I need to make 12 cupcakes, then I need flour, I need sugar, I need all these inputs in order to make the output. Well, for us knowledge workers, what is our input? It's not butter and sugar and flour. It's just two things. It's time and it's attention. And so if you haven't budgeted the ingredients, the input, you're not going to get the output. And so when you just focus on the to-do list, that's all you're thinking about. You're not budgeting in the ingredients of the output. Secondarily, the other thing that's terrible about to-do lists is that there's no constraints. So most people who use a to-do list, they'll look at the to-do list and they have all these things that they want to do, all these outputs, but because there's no constraint, they get to the end of their day and they have all these things that they still haven't done because of all these wishes of, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And so what happens? They get home after a long day of work. They've run themselves ragged and they look at this to-do list of all these things they still haven't finished. And so what does that do to your psyche if day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, you are constantly telling yourself you didn't do what you said you're going to do, loser? So it starts to reinforce this bullshit narrative that people have that I'm no good at time management, that my brain is broken, that my ADHD is preventing me from doing this stuff. No, nonsense. It's that you're not broken. It's that you have a stupid technique that you're using that is outdated and ineffective. So if you are not putting time in your calendar and forcing yourself to make trade-offs, you're never going to be productive. You're never going to live without regret. You're always going to be underperforming what your true potential is because you are not making trade-offs. You have to say to yourself, out of all these things I want to do, what do I have time for? You can't go to the gym, be with your kids, finish that novel, start the business, do all these things you want to do at the same time. You can do it all and you can have it all, just not all at once. And so if you just use a to-do list with all the things you want to have done, you're never going to do any of it very well, as opposed to when you have a time box calendar and you're going to say, look, I'm going to the gym and I'm not going to be at work. I'm going to play video games and I'm not going to be with my kids. Whatever the trade-offs are, I don't care. It sounds harsh. You have to make those trade-offs. And I'm not going to judge how you spend your time. That's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility to say, what do I think is important for my values? And so that's how you should spend your time, by turning your values into time.
And finally, do you have any methods that in particular you use every single day? And could you share them with us?
The most common mistake that people make around time boxing. The goal of time boxing and your assumption is that you have to finish. Wrong. The goal of to-do lists is to finish. We love checking those cute little boxes, right? Let me tell you something, Francesco. This is very embarrassing for me, but I'll confess. I used to do a task and then be so excited that I hadn't written it down on my to-do list. And so I would go back and write it on my to-do list after I'd finish it, just so I can check the cute little box. It was so dumb because of that, look at how productive I'm being. I wasn't being productive. I was doing easy stuff. I was doing urgent stuff. I wasn't doing real work. So the goal of time boxing is not to finish anything. Okay. That's very, very important. The goal of time boxing is not to finish anything. The goal of time boxing, how you measure success, is not did you finish? It's by one thing and one thing only. Did I do what I said I was going to do for as long as I said I would without distraction? That's it. Full stop. So if you said, I'm going to write for 30 minutes, I don't care how many sentences you wrote. I don't care how many pages you went through. You could sit there and do nothing but stare at your screen. But you succeeded because you didn't get distracted from the task at hand. Now, here's the kicker. People who measure themselves by that only metric of did I do what I said I was going to do for as long as I said I would without distraction, which does not include finishing. It just means that I do that task, that I work on that thing for as long as I said I would. They finish more than the to-do list people. Why does that happen? Because the to-do list people, they sit down and say, okay, I'm going to finish my presentation. Okay, here I go. I'm going to start on the slides. I'm going to start writing my talk. Here I go. I'm going to get started. Okay, I'm right. I could really use some coffee. Let me go get some coffee real quick. Oh, Janice is at the water cooler. Hey, Janice, what's going on? Okay, we start chit-chatting. I get back to my desk. Let me just check the news. Let me just check some email real quick. Wait a minute. What was I working on again? Oh, yeah, I was supposed to finish the presentation. Whereas a person who is indistractable, a person who uses time boxing, they say, nope, no coffee. Unless I have to pee my pants, I'm not getting up from this desk. Unless there's a fire in the building, I'm not leaving this desk right now for 30 minutes. That is all I'm working on. And they have the luxury of doing something that no to-do list can help you do, which is to teach you how long things take. This is a really, really big point. A to-do list, part of the problem with a to-do list is that it doesn't tell you how long things take. There's no feedback mechanism, which is why we have this what's called a planning fallacy. Most people, when we survey people and we ask them how long do you think a task is going to take, it takes them 300% longer than they estimate. That's the average. It takes you 3 times longer to finish a task than you think it will, because there's no feedback loop. Whereas with time boxing, it is the only way to say, okay, I need to work on this presentation, I need to work on writing, I need to work on email, whatever the task might be. You say, I'm going to work on it without distraction. I'm just going to do that one task. And now at the end of that time box, I can say, okay, I spent 30 minutes on it and I got through 3 slides. My presentation needs to be 30 slides. So that means I need 9 more time boxes to finish the task.
So to summarize this all, I found Nir's conversation really, really interesting. I think that combination of looking at time boxing and the indistractable method, combining those two and using them in your routine could really, really help me. I've obviously been approaching some situations a little bit wrong in my to-do list, thinking more about the task orientation versus getting into workflow states and actually just getting immersed inside of the task versus jumping around. So it was really interesting from that perspective, and I'll keep you updated on how my own productivity goes. But I wanted to say a big thanks to Nir for coming on and diving into how he uses routines, apps, and habits to get things done. So if you would like to browse more stacks, you can in link inscription. You can also explore all of the tools that Nir mentions, and you can also explore the series of stacks that we have here on the channel. But thanks so much for stopping by. Do like this video, subscribe if you're new, and share a comment below with what you learned from today's feature stack. So I'll see you around, and good luck with my time boxing. Cheerio for now.